Meet John Riccio. John Riccio is a bodybuilding champion. A champion is a person who does their best at whatever it is that they do, day in and day out. They give it 100%. John Riccio is that type of person. Here is his story.
My cousin had a magazine in 1981, and Franco Colombo was on the cover, and he had just won the Olympia, and I just thought to myself, oh wow, this is just incredible, and I want to be like that.
John has the mentality of a champion, and he is one of these people that never feels sorry for himself, nor is he a proud person. You know, in fact, John is very fond of saying that pride and pity are the two opposite ends of the same dirty stick. So he's a very well-balanced individual, and he brings this attitude into the gym. You know, it's one of love. John can be approached by anybody, and people can feel that spirit that he carries inside him, and it's actually very moving.
I've known John about 27 years, and I just remember coming into the gym and seeing him, and every time I saw him in the gym, he just had that look like, let's just hit it hard, let's go. You know, had that fire in him.
I feel like I'm lazy, but when he's around me, he really make me push, and he put me back almost 20 years.
The man loves what he's doing. You see in his disposition, his character. He's very upbeat. He's very positive. This is the kind of attitude that people need around just in life in general. It's awesome to see that. And I'm glad to see him still kicking it, hitting it hard, and training people hard. And the man, I guess, you know what? He's my hero. He's a good person to look up to.
With me, it's always been, I can be pitiful or powerful, but I can't be both. And I just purposed in my heart, I'm going to approach each day with a spirit of excellence and humility, and leave it there. I think too many of us focus on the regrets of the past or the worries of the future. But the gift is the present. So if I give the present my absolute best, it will promote a better tomorrow, even though I don't know what tomorrow may bring.
He inspires me on a daily basis. When I come in and get to see him, the whole, aura and ambiance that's created by having a guy like him around and stuff like that, it just makes a lot of us, feel good that we're a part of what's going on with him.
He always has a smile on his face. He's such an inspiration to me personally. He always makes sure he comes by to say hello to me. We always give each other a big hug, and he's a wonderful guy. So loving, caring, and just always upbeat.
He's kind of like me. We've been around so long, we kind of have an eye. So we're like, hey, why don't you try it this way? And he has a real good way of doing that and showing people the proper way to train without overstepping his bounds. So yeah, he does a real good job with that. And then he can't shut up about Jesus, so it's just like, that's right there anyway. So it's cool. Yeah, that's a cool kid.
And how did you do in the competitions?
I did well. I placed in the top 5 in every show, and I qualified for the Bodybuilder of the Year in 1990 in Southern Cal. They picked 3 guys, and out of all the years I had to do that, Flex Wheeler won.
That's quite an accomplishment. So you're nominated for Bodybuilder of the Year along with Flex Wheeler in 1990. How did that make you feel?
Well, it really made me feel good. My thing wasn't about the trophy. I also qualified for the Natural Mr. Universe in the ABA. But I think to me it was, how many hearts can I touch out there in a positive way, hoping that I can step on stage not for a trophy, but to inspire and encourage and edify and uplift others.
I was born in 1964 in Norwich, Connecticut. About the age of 15 months, because of the fact that I wasn't moving around like other little children of that age, I was taken to the hospital, and the doctors diagnosed me with a birth defect known as cerebral palsy.
I was first introduced to John Riccio several years ago by a mutual friend, and he told me this story about how he went into a gym one day, and it was during a pre-contest phase, and he was feeling sorry for himself as he looked for a machine to do cardio on, and he stopped feeling sorry for himself when he looked out across the gym and he saw this guy in a wheelchair who lowered himself onto the floor and literally dragged himself over to the dumbbell rack and picked up the dumbbells and proceeded to do side dumbbell laterals from his knees. And he said he was just totally blown away, and that's how he met John. And then later, John and I were introduced, and we became lifelong friends. We've done a lot together, and he is just such an inspiration to everybody that he meets.
I used to watch Jack LaLanne. I can remember at 4 years old wishing that I had a body that worked right and just praying, dear God, if you could give me a body that worked right, I promise I'd take care of it. But basically the cerebral palsy involved braces, numerous surgeries at the hospital, corrective surgeries, if you will. And then of course, going from braces to eventually crutches, I realized that when the doctors started saying, you know, most of these people have a very short lifespan, you know, he's going to either have to go into a facility that can handle him better, or he's going to have to try to do something for his own betterment. And I was determined at that point to do the absolute best that I could to take care of what I had.
He's so dedicated in what he's doing, and he's just so positive. And I know personally me, I don't know if I could even be this, you know, as positive with all of his, you know, things that he's gone through, but he's such an inspiration to everybody.
How did you feel when you heard that you were going to be faced with these challenges?
I think my initial response was, how dare an individual tell me what I'm going to be or not going to be based on something a book said, because that person doesn't know me or what's inside. So there was this champion fighting to get out, and you know, I'm still watching Jack LaLanne, and I'm looking at everything from a health standpoint, determined in my heart as I'm going to school with all these other disabled children, and it's breaking my heart, and they're older than me, and I'm watching them deteriorate. It was incredibly heartbreaking, and I said, that's not going to be me. I had already purposed in my heart, if I have an opportunity to embrace doing something for myself, I'm going to do it, and do it with a spirit of excellence. Of course, you know, things just didn't work right. I'm using the crutches, but you know, my legs are constantly spastic and tripping over myself. My body wasn't strong enough to hold myself up all day, and I just thought to myself, there's got to be something better than what I'm currently experiencing. And you know, family members were like, well, you can't really do anything, so it's better for you to just sit and keep yourself occupied. But no, I want dumbbells. So I remember getting that little first set of dumbbells, and that's what I wanted. And so, you know, I would have the little dumbbells, and I would do everything I could to balance myself, try to stabilize myself, and maybe do 1 or 2 curls. And you know, each day was, I got 1 curl in and without falling over, and then a couple of days later, maybe another curl, and then I eventually began to utilize both arms at the same time. So I think it was just a natural progression, and I said, I'm not where I want to be, but thank God I'm not where I used to be.
I was introduced by my general manager, Josh. He told me that, you know, hey, this is John, and I immediately wanted to know his story. I immediately wanted to know where he came from and how he's doing what he's doing.
And I just remember times going in watching him, and I just kept wondering, where do you get that motivation? You know, and he'd look at you and he'd just tell you, you know, oh man, you just got to be on fire for this.
He's so on fire for the Lord. He loves the Lord so much, and he just inspires me that way.
He came in the gym at the time. John had crutches he was walking on, and just the greatest guy. I just right away smiled on his face, you know, took his hand off his crutch, shook my hand, said, hey, you know, if it's okay, I'd like to get a workout in for today and see how I like the gym. And I said, yeah, absolutely. And at the time he was training for a show, and he was just in great shape, you know, and it was just so inspiring to see a guy who just, you know, was in the state that he was in with just the enthusiasm and the passion to get through his difficulties and seeing him every day for probably 6 or 7 years, every day just trying as hard as he could to be the best he could every day was just, there's nobody in that gym that wasn't inspired every day he came in.
John, you at some point decided, I'm seeing changes in my body, I'm really excited about this, I'm going to enter a bodybuilding competition.
Yeah.
Now, people must have thought you were crazy.
I think that was the, initially when I first got into the gym that I went to was downstairs. All the weights were downstairs, but the stairs were so steep I had to be carried down the stairs to the gym. And so that's kind of like a little bit of a spectacle, but I didn't care what people thought. So then when I got down there, I realized, wow, free weights are so different, and look at this whole new world that's been opened up to me. But each day I just approached everything, not what I couldn't do, I focused on what I could do.
Now wait a second, you were on crutches and you could not get yourself around the gym too well, yet you were on the leg press?
Well, I thought to myself, gosh, everything in bodybuilding that I see is about symmetry. So I could get around in the crutches, but the legs were just insanely lagging, and so when I had measured them, I believe that the quads were like 9 inches. And because of the spasticity of the cerebral palsy, everything was so tight, it was very hard to stretch the leg out to get it up on the leg press, especially the 45-degree angle. But, eventually, it took 6 months to be able to get him on there. And then when I got my feet on there, I realized that with legs, everything started from the ground up. So I had to retrain my mind to just say, okay, now I'm going to work on just contracting the feet and the calf, and then from that to the hand, and then get the quad in play, and then the glute. Anything worth doing is worth doing well. And I had just invested 6 months, put up with a bunch of laughing, and people always, he's never going to be anything, and as long as he stays out of our way, it's okay. And it just, I had spent so much effort getting down the stairs, being carried down the stairs, and getting in. Why stop now? So 7 years later, my quad was in contest shape, 25 inches, and my waist was 22. So it does work. Persistence pays off.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've sat down at a table and had people say, I got this, I got that, I got this, I got that. I mean, there's limitations. I mean, he's got all of them. I mean, there's not one limitation that's not present there. Everything from transportation to not being able to perform some of the exercises correctly, to being able to have somebody there. For the most part, even the financial burden of purchasing a gym membership. Those are all things that, for the most part, people really would take for granted, but he doesn't.
And so some days you'll be in and you're like, my shoulder's not working at all. And you look over and you see Johnny crawling out of his wheelchair, onto a bench. And I know the pain level he's in. And it's like, if he can do it, you can do it. And that's my motivation from him.
How did it feel the first time that you came out onto the bodybuilding stage?
Well, it's a little nerve-wracking when you're on crutches because you don't realize the first time you do it, there's oil there. So I have crutches with rubber tips, and I remember Ken Kuhn helped me out on stage because the oil was so slippery, so I felt like Bambi on ice. But once they dried the oil off a little bit, and I just was able to stay stable and tight, things went well.
And the audience must have just loved you.
I think that they didn't expect, of course, me to come on stage, but they really appreciated the effort, And so it was my whole thing was it's not where I place, but how many hearts I touch in the process. So if someone says, look, if this guy can do this with all his limitations, how much more, in fact, can I do?
John has touched so many hearts, and he has defied the limits. He does it every day. Now, it hasn't been without its challenges, and it hasn't been without numerous surgeries. Yet through all of this, John has always said, cerebral palsy does not have me, I have it. But that was almost not the case a few years ago.
I was in the gym normally, and I was doing really well. I was about 10% at 178, and at 5 feet tall, that's pretty big. And here I am, a little more puffed up back then, and hey, maybe now I've got it going on, and so happy with myself, with what I've accomplished. And I was having a little trouble breathing that day. So I asked one of the guys, could you please take me to the hospital, because I'm not feeling too well. So what happened is, when we got to the hospital, my breathing became more labored, And when they put me on the table on one of the beds, it actually weighs you. So in 3 hours, I went from 178 to 217. What had happened in the interim of me being sedentary, the femoral arteries began to clog. And so we realized we had a problem there. And the blockage was so severe that that's when we had made the decision to amputate the legs.
During the operation in which John had his legs amputated, he said that he felt everything, even under anesthesia. He said that he screamed at what he thought was the top of his lungs for hours, yet no one heard him. John then said at the end of this torturous experience, something miraculous happened.
Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you want to look at it, I look at it as a blessing. I had passed away and was able to go to heaven, and God talked to me and explained to me, the things that He expected of me, and that I was loved and accepted. So just relax and do things His way.
Last surgery that John had, I told him that I would come and visit him and that I would pray over him. And I find in the guy, I walk in and I'm thinking, oh, I'd be so nervous. He's just so calm. There's a couple other people there. And so I prayed with him, and then they turn around and he is praying over me.
So I go over to Palomar Hospital, and there's Johnny. And I hadn't seen him for probably 8-10 years. And they had his legs cut off. And he's this big, laying in the bed.
Was the news devastating?
I really don't think it was at that point, because when you go to heaven, you realize how loved and accepted you are. And I was obviously given opportunity to go back for a purpose.
Now, John, you mentioned going to heaven, and you know that there's people out there that are going to hear that and they're going to be skeptical. What can you tell us about that experience there?
Well, what I can tell you is, number one, my prior opinion of Dad doesn't really matter in the face of the truth. People can say, oh, well, you just had a chemical response in your brain. And if that's what they want to think, they can think that, but it made me a better person. It made me different. I realized, hey, look, I have a plan and a purpose that's been preordained by God, and I'm so loved and accepted, then now I have an opportunity to relax. I was always trying to run from my disability instead of allowing God to use it to be a blessing to others.
John shows that inner strength that comes from the Holy Spirit. He has this energy about him, this love for people that just comes out of him, and it's just wonderful to see. It's contagious. I know it has been for me. It's inspired me. It makes me want to work harder. It makes me more motivated, and it makes others that see him ever more motivated to work out. When you see John, you say, "What's my excuse?"
One of the first qualities of love is patience, and I think that's what I learned. Yeah, we all want to have this incredible physique, but we wouldn't appreciate it if we got it in a week. They've got to realize if they've done things to their body that isn't conducive to it being healthy, it's going to take at least that much time to get into shape. So don't beat yourself up. You got to be your best friend, not your worst enemy. We have to think with a positive mindset. Don't focus on the things that you don't have. Begin to be thankful for the things you do have.
John picks up on my mood before I ever go and find John for some reason. There's plenty of times when I see him too, but there's also those times when I'm not even present for the day, but there's already somebody there present for me.
All the people I met and they've been around him, they love him, but really they listen to him. And he make me, feel amazing. I'm around him, taking a lot of tip from him. And he's, like I said, he's a good man and he has a big heart for everybody.
The thing that I love about John, I love his spirit. He is truly filled with the Holy Spirit, and he loves people. It just comes right out of him, this positive energy. Anybody that meets him feels that love that John has to help other people. And John, I got to tell you, I love you too, brother. And I am just so happy to know you and to share time with you. You have been an inspiration to me and to many others like me. Thank you, John.
You only lose when you stop trying. So as long as I give 110%, then you're a constant winner. You've got to believe in yourself. You can't stop to think about the situation. You just have to overcome it. You don't have to be part of it. It's basically like this: shoot for the moon. Even if you miss, you still end up among the stars. So what I'm going to try to do is set a quality example, and if what I do inspires others to better themselves, then I've had a fruitful life while I was here. If I sit home and feel sorry for myself, it doesn't help me or anybody else around me. So that's basically what it's all about. A lot of times people will do things to get the praise of man. But I think the most important thing is when you do something because the bottom line is it's the right thing to do. And I believe that the things that are done in kindness that are never mentioned here on earth are always echoed in heaven.